Again, I talked about biometric scans, fingerprint, hand, palm, retina, iris, voice pattern, keystroke pattern. So your voice pattern and keystrokes, those are not as reliable, but people use them for defense in death in some cases. I haven't really talked about keystroke yet. So keystroke, basically, let's say your password is 123456, which I don't recommend that you make your password 123456, but for this example, let's say you type it in 123456. That's your keystroke pattern. Or you may type it in 123456 or 123456. That's your keystroke pattern. So you would record your keystroke pattern. And so let's say that's defense in death. So you may know your password as 123456, but intruder may not know that it's typed in to 123456. And that's another way to authenticate who you are. And remember, I mentioned it's who you are, what you know, what you have, something you do. That's something that you may do. Now, when it gets it wrong, let's say you you're trying to authenticate or be authenticated in the system, and you put in your password and it doesn't accept you, or you do your retina scan or iris scan and it's really you, but you don't get access. That's a false rejection. You should be accepted, but you are rejected. Now let's say Joe Schmo comes in and he types in or puts in a fingerprint, and he's not supposed to have access, and he is given access. Then that's your false acceptance. You're falsely accepted into the system. Now you want your system, when it's set up, to be right around the middle, where your false acceptance and false rejection rate is around, it meets in the middle. And that's your crossover rate, where they meet, and you want it in the middle. Again, nothing is perfect, but there are some technologies that are better than others. All right, so let's go on to the next type of project that you may be doing. You may be doing a single sign-on project. And basically, single sign-on means you sign on one time, you authenticate many. So let's say you use one password, but it gives you access to 10 different applications. But what that will do is increase your productivity, and also you don't have to remember a whole bunch of passwords. What's bad about that? That sounds pretty good, right? Well, an intruder, if he gets access to your single sign-on, he has access to all of your applications. He or she will have access to all of your applications. Also, if it fails, then you don't have access to anything. So if your single sign-on application is not backed up or doesn't have some type of recovery, remember I talked about the different types of solutions. A recovery solution that is implemented on the spot as soon as it goes down, is not mirrored, then you have a single point of failure as well. So you have intrusion. I didn't mention this before, but another project you may be working on is some type of intrusion detection or prevention. And so an intrusion analysis, you can look at this quote here, is basically looking at it bit by bit, byte by byte, looking for differences in what's happening on the network and determining if something is taking place and measuring against that pattern that it knows. So an anomaly base compares current activity with stored profiles of normal activity. So let's look at this. It says it's susceptible to superstitious learning. So what happens is when you implement this type of solution, let's say this is a project that you are working on, and you want to know, you want to base your knowledge of your network system, so you baseline it. So you find out everything that's going on the network, right? And from that point on, if anything happens that's different than what your intrusion analysis has recorded, then you will know something fraudulent or something bad is taking place. So what has happened sometimes is that an intruder is already in your system, and so they're already doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Well, your system is learning this, and so it will not detect this as something that shouldn't take place, because it's being taken place while the analysis is being recorded. So your baseline is actually including the it's actually including the suspicious behavior, so it won't see it as suspicious. That's what's wrong with anomaly-based solutions. Now you got the very opposite, where it's scanning everything, all of the code. Now when it's doing this, it's going to find everything, so it produces many false positives. So that's the bad part about. So you got two ends of the spectrum here, and it's slow. And but the good thing is that it can find unknown virus threats by looking at the code. So you may have a database of viruses, but this will find the ones that are not currently known. So that's the good thing about that. So you have intrusion detection and intrusion prevention. Remember I talked about what type of solution? Well, this is a detective solution. Intrusion detection IDS systems basically determine what is going on the network or on your system, host system, and can detect an anomaly, right? So when it detects it, it doesn't do anything, it just alerts you. It doesn't stop it, but it will alert you. Now nowadays, IDSs are IPSs, which is intrusion prevention systems, where you can tell it to do something. You can tell it to stop the attack. You can tell it to send this attacker or this intruder to a specific location on your network. Then you can gain information about the intruder. So there are different things that you can do, but the IDS, remember I also talked about it can be a deterrent, or there are solutions that are deterrents. When an intruder, if an intruder does his reconnaissance on your network, if they determine that you have an IDS, or if they know that you have an IDS, it can be a deterrent, and they may say, oh, well, you know what, I'm not even going to try this network because I know they have an IDS. So in that case, it's a deterrent. It detects violations missed by others, and it can document ongoing threats. And if it's on the network, it's a network intrusion detection system, right? It sits on the network. If it's on your computer, it's a host intrusion detection system. The bad part about this is that it may slow down your system or server. It sits on there and it just eats up performance resources. But it can catch things that the network intrusion detection system will not catch. That's the good thing about it. What else you have? I talked about content-based, rate-based. At least I think I talked about content. That's when you have content that is speaking toward the ice cream, has ice cream in it, and that's your content that you want to protect. So you can look at certain items that has ice cream content in it, and it will detect it and keep it from having access to that ice cream file. So that's a content-based intrusion detection system. So we talked about plan building testing. When it comes to plan building and testing, you want to make sure that you have your key performance indicators. You know, what is success for this project? What should it accomplish? That's your KPI. And that's really important as it relates to what you are testing as well. So then we get into, what do you test? You test your application security, and you test whether or not you are vulnerable to DOS. DOS is huge, denial of service. That's when your IP address is flooded with requests, and it's flooded with so many requests that it can't handle it, which causes your IP to go down. So when legitimate users want to access a particular website or your IP address, it won't be able to because it's flooded with other requests. War dialing. Nowadays, you don't really see too many people trying to access, people use networks versus modems. But war dialing is actually when, you don't realize it, but a lot of systems still have modems. An experienced hacker or attacker or intruder will do reconnaissance, determine that you have a modem, and actually call your modem, and then access your system via your modem. So that's war dialing. And they will dial hundreds and thousands of modems just to see which one picks up. Wireless penetration testing, that's testing your WEPs, WPAs, WPA2s. WEPs are your least secure, WPA2 is your most secure, just so that you know. And actually I have another presentation where I talk about network and telecommunications, so look forward to seeing that video if you want more information as it relates to pen testing, wireless pen testing. And social engineering, you need to make sure that your people know that they are targets. So you want to test whether or not your employees are susceptible to phishing attacks. That's basically an email that may come to you or your employees and ask them to log into their account or change their password. When they go in to change their password, it asks for your old password. You put in your old password, which is really your current password, and now the intruder knows your password. Because when you put in your new password, it's just for you to put it in. When you go back to the system and you put in your new password, it won't work. Why? Because you really didn't change it, because that was an intruder getting your password when you put in your old password. I know this is kind of confusing, but I have a whole another video and presentation about that. But you want to test and have KPIs, key performance indicators, as relates to what's acceptable and what isn't, and what makes for a successful project. And you want to test against your requirements, so that should be put in your requirements. So these are all the things that you should know as it relates to access control, managing projects. My next video is about network security, telecom projects, and I appreciate you watching this video, and I look forward to talking to you soon. I'm Ron Wilkey, your cybersecurity quarterback. Thank you.